everybody, and this is America's Mayor live from Rome, Italy. Ah, yes, Rome, Italy, right above the beautiful city of Rome, the Eternal City. Great view of the Vatican. If you watch the shows on Monday on X and um, on Lindell's speech, yeah, we run
Lindell
both.
TV.
We run both Lindell TV and X from Rome, and you were able to do it. We were able to do it when it was still light out, and you could see a beautiful vista, including, of course, the Vatican. So maybe I should start with that, since I can give you an update. I today had a wonderful tour of the Vatican given to me by Bishop Christopher, who is a wonderful man, who was very close to Pope John Paul. Uh, he came to Rome from Poland. Of course, he speaks fluent Italian, as all the bishops and cardinals here do, whether they come from America or Poland, as he does. But he gave me something that I will now treasure for the rest of my life. He gave me a set of rosary beads that come from the Pope. By the Pope, I mean Pope John Paul, who I did have an opportunity to meet two or three times, two times, and who also blessed my children, Andrew and Caroline, the first time we met. Uh, and I consider John Paul, who is now a saint of the church, whose altar I prayed at today, and we will tomorrow or Friday, as we process it, we will show you video of that. I consider John Paul also, in the political realm, and I mean in the highest level political realm, one of the great figures of the 20th century, because it was him and Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher that would be really the most responsible for the demise of communism in Eastern Europe. Now, you say, well, communism still exists in China, but it doesn't exist in Poland right now. It doesn't exist in Lithuania, Latvia. Doesn't exist in the place I was in yesterday, Republic of Srpska, or Serbia, or Bosnia and Herzegovina, although they have their own problems. They're not based on communism. So you've got millions of people living in freedom that couldn't go to church, couldn't decide where their children go to school, couldn't decide what their children do for a living, couldn't decide how much money they make or not based on their own ambition, and couldn't really speak out against the government, or they would be imprisoned. Now, part of the problem is we got rid of communism, and now in Western Europe, I don't know what to call. I don't know whether to call it the result of the infiltration of Marxism in Western Europe, as they have done in the United States, or an authoritarian viewpoint, or it is very similar to what those of us who are conservative experience in America, which is that the left wingers know better. They know all the solutions. The solution should be dictated from the central government, and we should just accept it and shut up. Because if we talk, they'll put us in jail, or they'll fire us from our jobs, or they'll bankrupt us. Now, they're doing that in a lot of Europe right now. I'll give you one example. In the United Kingdom, in Berkshire, England, they raided the home of some guy, and they found what they regard as neo-Nazi literature in his home. Well, that's concern. I hate neo-Nazi literature, and I despise anti-Semitism, and I don't think we do enough about it. But they prosecuted this man for toxic thinking. What? I mean, maybe he had it there because he was going to lecture against it. I don't know. Maybe he had it there for historic reasons. Maybe he had it there because he's a hateful bum or animal. But you can't prosecute the guy for what he's thinking. What do you get, a machine to do that? And that's only one example of a. In Germany, they prosecute people who silently, prayerfully protest abortion. Well, you don't have a right to be against abortion. I mean, my goodness, for most of human history, abortion was considered a crime and certainly a sin. The same thing with if you don't use the right pronoun. I mean, you either accept that there are numerous genders defying that's true 3,000 years of human history, defying what I would regard as objective science about the physical conditioning of body, and you have to subscribe to describing it some other way. And if you don't, well, in America, you'll be condemned. Canceled used to be the word, but you'll be condemned. You might be fired from your job. People won't talk to you, that sort of thing. In certain parts of Europe, you go to jail for it. So they have got a very, very serious situation of trashing the basic values of Western civilization. The worst of which is Western Europe really developed into these vibrant, great countries that constitute the background of so many Americans, largely because of religion. These are countries that went through the civilizing impact of Christianity, originally Roman Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy, joined as one religion really for 1,000 years. Then they split in terms of jurisdiction. They didn't split much on teaching or on beliefs, maybe no split there at all, nor did they split much on the liturgy of their services, although one was in Latin and the other was in Greek or Serbian or Bosnia, or not Bosnia, but Serbian or Bulgarian or whatever, or Russian. And then the Protestant Reformation took place, and a very large group of additional churches emerged with very strong beliefs and variations of those beliefs, all centered around one God, and in the case of Christians, Jesus Christ. And in the case of Jewish people, one God, the commandments, all of that makes up Western civilization. That's been thrown out. No, not just thrown out by the Muslim-controlled countries, thrown out by the European-controlled countries. The level of religious practice in Europe is pathetic, including in countries that were well known for being religious countries. Germany may be the worst. Now, Germany is split right in half. Germany is half Catholic, half Protestant, and all religious. It's the home of Johann Sebastian Bach. Now, church attendance is down to almost nothing, and it's even not all that good in France, in Spain. These were very religious Catholic countries. In the UK, a country with a state religion, Anglican, but also a country that has a lot of various breakaways from the Church of England. Methodist, Presbyterian, all these established churches are, as far as I can tell, down in numbers and attendance. You want to look for growing religious faith, go to Africa, go to Asia, even go to China, where they're growing and growing and growing. despite the fact that they're being persecuted and killed. Rarely, rarely told story, because China has so much control over our news media. It has so much control over Hollywood that you're not allowed to say things like that. So these are things that those people who have been suffering and those people who have been targeted, I have to tell you, here in Europe, they are as, if not more enthusiastic about Donald Trump. And J.D. Vance's speech in Munich, which was roundly condemned by the American jackasses, was roundly applauded by all these right-wing conservative groups. And let me tell you that when you hear that all of these groups are described in the trashy newspapers they have here in Europe, which is almost every one, with a few exceptions. I was at one today, Tempo, that they're trying to make illegal because it's right wing. These newspapers will just describe people as neo-Nazi. It's the default description of any effective conservative political figure in France, Italy, Germany. You can go on and on and on. So when I was in the Republic of Srpska, the political party, the prevailing political party there, which is a Christian party, is described as having neo-Nazi affiliations. Now, the leader of the party, who just got convicted of something like they were trying to convict Trump of, and I'll get into that in a minute, Milorad Dodik, who is been in politics for about 22 maybe 25 years, and has been in politics since the conclusion of the Bosnian War, which is 1994. Has not engaged in any violent activity, has not engaged in any war activity, has not engaged in any excessive anything. And he's been elected several times as the president of his country. But his country is this very weird thing. So you have Serbia. That's a country of about 6 million people, and a Christian country. You have a country right below it called Bosnia Herzegovina, which is 51% Muslim. And then within Bosnia Herzegovina, you have a country called Republika Srpska. That's about 49% of the country, and they are Serbian Christians. Now, why they're put together, you know, this country was established by a Democrat, right? You know immediately that it was established by a left-wing, silly, Ivy League, up in the clouds, or possibly a direct Marxist who wanted to create permanent difficulties, as most of these lines that get drawn by the internationalists do. Because they put together in one country people that had been at war against each other, when they easily could have taken the Serbians that make up Republika Srpska and put them in Serbia and kept them, the Muslims and the few Croatians that live in Bosnia Herzegovina in their country. And the fact is that since 94, which is now 21 years, even though they've been, even though Serbia is in the north and the Muslim Bosnia Herzegovina is in the south, and this carve out of Serbian population is part of the Muslim country. There's been no war. They may not agree with each other. They may not like each other, although not universally. Uh, Milorad Dodik, who was the president of Srpska, is largely well liked in the Muslim part, but not by the Democrat internationalists, not by the UN people, not by the One World people, and not by the people who enforced on them a peace that makes no sense at all and divides their country in half. Actually, it divides the country into three. So today he was convicted, and I mean, he's describing it to me himself. But I just spent a while going through the internet, and there's not a single story on the internet that explains his side of it. So you come away with the impression that he's an unabashed nationalist, and he's the greatest threat to Bosnia and Herzegovina's fragile multi-ethnic peace. Well, the only reason it's a multi-ethnic peace is they decided to attach a minority group of Serbians to a majority Muslim country. They could have just as easily, the peacemakers, the communist left-wing peacemakers, put the Serbians all in Serbia. Also, I don't know how he is a great threat since he's been in politics for 22 years and he's never been convicted of anything. He's never led any violent anything. Sure, he has strong views against this kind of an arrangement, but he doesn't lead groups to do violence. He doesn't. Now, that isn't totally true of Bosnia-Herzegovina. Bosnia-Herzegovina has at various times been a stopping off point and a headquarters for Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and one that gets me really upset that we tend to favor them is they were a place where two of the hijackers, the murderers on 9/11 were trained. And we have the Clinton, Obama, and Biden administrations supporting the Muslim country and treating the Serbian country horribly. So this crazy peace arrangement has a envoy. I don't exactly know where the envoy comes from. I expect this UN, which immediately will tell you it's a non-American, non-Christian, probably Marxist, and possibly even corrupt, because a good deal of the UN, just judging by all the people I used to have to arrest from the UN, is not a place where you should presume that many of those delegates are straight, honest people. I mean, many of them come from completely crooked countries. So this envoy comes in named Christian Schmidt. He's elected by no one, and he says that the president and his number two guy cannot speak out against this strange arrangement that has them as a minority in a hostile country and has them treated as second-class citizens. And so he gets prosecuted for things I've never heard of: preventing state-level constitutional rulings to go into effect. Now, there'd be a reason for that. He runs an autonomous region within the state, which is supposed to have control of domestic affairs. These laws were all domestic laws. I mean, given the notion that it's autonomous, he should have the right to decide which ones they follow, which ones they don't. Now, if that's right or wrong as a legal matter, this is not a basis for putting a man in prison. Unless you're a fascist, if not a neo-Nazi, acting like a Nazi. The second is amending legislation and publishing and the publishing of official acts. Well, it's going to really depend on whether it involves foreign policy or domestic policy. It all involved domestic policy. And it would seem like it was logical as an extension of being an autonomous region. Well, the great German Christian, now what a German is doing, telling these people what to do in Bosnia or Herzegovina and in Serbia is, of course, insane. It's based on a war that took place 21 years ago with a substantial amount of intervention. And who knows how straight the story is about all that. I mean, they can't do anything straight here in Europe, or certainly Western Europe. So today, the president of Serbia, Republika Srpska, was sentenced to 1 year in prison, which he doesn't have to do if he pays a $15,000 fine, and disqualification from office for 5 years. That's the key. So Schmidt, the German, who was elected by no one, not even the Muslims, gets to take out the popularly elected, very substantial majority of the people support him. He is probably the most popular political figure in the history of this strangely put together country. The people of the country, from what I could tell in seeing the country, support him. I don't know if it's 100%, but 80. They elected him. They didn't elect Christian Schmidt. They say he's got to be out of office for 5 years. Now you run into the following problem. This country is autonomous. They don't have to respect someone coming in there trying to arrest someone. So you're creating, let the guy speak his mind and argue against it. And it's only natural. It's only normal. It's only the exercise of people that have a free will and that you want to have your country autonomous and your country, and you want it to not be ruled by people that are extraordinarily hostile to you or people that produce people. I can see why I wouldn't want to be part of a country that produced people that go to New York and Washington and blow up the United States. Happens to be in Serbia and in Srpska Republic. America is very popular. They just had great celebrations for the election of Donald Trump. And in Bosnia Herzegovina, they had great celebrations when our people were killed at the World Trade Center. And who does America favor? And Germany, the country that had the people who came to America and killed us. I only state that as an example of many Al-Qaeda and ISIS figures that killed American and others that emerged from that country. So I do hope that the president, and he will, that these realignments are looked at that were done in bad faith by a group of people that have no regard for the rights of others because they think they are, well, like all Marxists, they think they're smarter than everyone, including God. That, by the way, is pretty much a quote from Marx. If you've ever dealt with these know-it-all liberals, which I have done forever, you know exactly how they became that way if you read Karl Marx. So back in the United States, Trump had his first cabinet meeting today, and it was interesting that an hour of it was on television. I don't know that Biden ever had a cabinet meeting on television. I don't even know if Biden ever had a cabinet meeting. Did he have cabinet meetings? Did he talk at them? I really always thought he had very few cabinet meetings because the whole cabinet would walk out aware of the fact that he was mentally ill. But he could be safe knowing that the Democrats in his administration would always put their personal interests, their desire for power, their desire for money ahead of any concern for the United States of America having a president who can't function. Because he wasn't able to function the day he went into office. He wasn't able to function when he was running for office. In fact, if you want to take a look at the hard drive, just another part of it ignored all the time. There's a conversation, I believe 2018, possibly 2019, between Hunter Biden and his psychiatrist, Keith Abloh. And in the conversation, and this happens twice, they discuss how Joe's demented and how that leaves a lot of opportunities to get things passed. It's 19. He got elected at 20. While he was being elected, he was saying things like he saw Franklin Roosevelt read the comic books on television. Of course, Franklin Roosevelt was dead before there was television. He said things like, how about this one? I always enjoyed the little children when I was in the pool touching the hair on my legs. Whoa. We got dementia there. We got maybe some other problems. And if they ever do let you take a good look at the hard drive, you will see that that's more than speculation. Well, the reality is that he's gone, but the people who did this damage to our country have got to be held to account. So not out of vindictiveness, out of something we lost sight of, certainly for 4 dark years, maybe longer, justice. Justice. So today, looks like Kash Patel opened an investigation of James Cardinal Comey. James Cardinal Comey, of course, was the self-important, highly officious liar and politically dishonest corrupter of the FBI who lied on a application for a warrant to investigate these people in order to pursue Donald Trump 4 times and got away with it completely. Not much more serious an FBI agent can do than that, except what is now open for investigation, which is a whistleblower has come along who is alleged to be an FBI employee and a person involved in this investigation, that Comey took a large sum of money and applied it to what's called a honeypot operation and kept it off the books so Congress would never see it. And the honeypot operation was to hire 2, it would normally mean very attractive women, put them at the top of the Trump campaign and see if they could seduce people and get information. Wow. Okay, it's alleged, or it's now whistleblower. Of course, it's not all over the newspapers like the whistleblower about the Ukrainian conversation, who lied completely about it. I mean, that lie was out there for a week before it was corrected. And then it led to an impeachment anyway, because Shifty Schiff completely lied about it. And he's gotten away with presenting a false story to remove a lawfully elected president. So it's very, very good to see that Kash is not being intimidated like often Republicans are. Oh, let's forget about it. Let bygones be bygones. You see, if they put us in prison or take away our rights or bankrupt us, then when we get into power, we should say, let bygones be bygones. But when they get into power, then they want to put us in prison. Well, that's what happened last time. I mean, Trump comes in, perfectly legitimate to prosecute Hillary Clinton. My goodness, I mean, except for Biden's case, I've never seen one as strong as the one against Hillary, smashing up hard drives, smashing up, bleaching, bleaching computers, throwing things in the ocean, and eliminating 33,000 emails, including some that had high levels of classification, and letting those classifications be available to others, including Wiener. Wiener gets to read all this classified stuff. Not when he was in Congress, but after his first time acting like a pervert and sending pictures of his genitals to people, which he got out of jail, offered himself for mayor again. Because my city is pathologically Democrat, it's a sickness, not a political, well thought out decision. He was the leading candidate until they found out he was doing it again. Now he wants to run again. So let's see what happens. We will be right back.
To celebrate the new year, we're having the biggest sale ever on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save 60% on our Goose Down comforters, the best comforters ever. They go perfectly with our MyPillow bed sheets and duvet covers. Save 25% on our brand new kitchen towels. They're made with the same technology as our famous My Towels. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. Our seasonal flannel sheets are finally in. You save up to 50% and they sell out fast every year, so order now. They're truly the best flannel sheets you'll ever sleep on. Or save up to 80% on all our clearance items. And this is where it gets even better. For a limited time, your entire order ships absolutely free. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use that promo code to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products. And for a limited time, your order...
You want to walk and kind of...
Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep grain, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because we like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans, no Robusto, all Arabica. They're gonna go into the roaster and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee.
This is Rudy Giuliani, and I'm back with America's Mayor Live. So I want to talk to you about my day today. And then later in the week, when we put together the videos, we'll do a real run through of my trip to Rome. Today I began with a very, very informative meeting with Edmundo Cirilli, who is responsible for economic development. And I began by asking him, before we talked about the alliance between the United States and Italy, what the number one problem in Italy was. And of course, he said, like we all do, the economy. And he said the problem for Italy is, she sound familiar? The completely out of control, left-wing, wacky, nutty government that spends money like it, comes down from heaven, and you don't have to earn it. And Italy trying to pretend it was France. Well, thank good they work a little more than in France, but in France, it's considered an insult if you ask people to work. The government should just give you money. But and their economy is even worse than Italy's. Now, here's the good news. 2 years ago, almost 2.5 years ago, Italy elected a right-wing government with Giorgia Meloni as the prime minister, and with the support of the former Prime Minister Berlusconi, his party, and then the party of Matteo Salvini, who and these parties were able, as conservative parties, to put aside their differences and all join together. Something that, at times we've had a hard time doing as Republicans and conservatives. And as a result of that, now, but I also met with Salvini and with Georgia today. As a result of that, they've got Italy on a really, really strong course. They have all of a sudden gone on the positive ledger and creating jobs. They've got the economy for the first time in a long time growing again. They have presented a picture of a government that will be responsive and helpful to business, and increasingly so, as they break down the barriers that have been created over 20 or 30 years of on and off socialist governments. And a prime minister that reminds me in many ways of Donald Trump, because she began talking to me about the investments that she's brought to Italy, including one from Saudi Arabia and other places. These European prime ministers don't talk about investments. They talk about, how many more people they can make dependent. I mean, it's pathetic what the left wing has done to Germany. Germany had to be 20 years ago, and I've been coming here since I was mayor. I've been 80 different countries and spent a lot of time in Europe. And gosh, back in 2003, 2004, 2005, I mean, Germany was the model. Efficient, hardworking, distinguishing himself from France, constantly making fun of the French. Now the French, I think, are more productive. And that's what socialism does to you. So you have this group now in Italy that looks at the world the way we do. By we, I mean those of us who are conservative. So when I spoke to Mr. Cirilli, he said the most important thing that America can do for Italy is to invest, do business together on both sides, and that the present government is been encouraging that, doing that, and now has probably, don't know that it's got the strongest economy in Western Europe, but it's sure right up near the top. And it certainly has a much more promising economy than the countries that are its neighbors, France, Spain. I don't know what's going on in England. Not only that, they don't have, because the conservative government is a government that respects free speech and freedom, because it's conservative with a very, very big libertarian strain. They're not putting people in jail for what they think. They're not putting people in jail for protesting abortion, which is a free speech right. They're not putting people in jail because they're saying things that are politically incorrect. And they're not putting people in jail who use the wrong words for men and women, which is being proposed in various parts of Europe, by the way. Go to jail. Now, I'm sorry. Maybe if you tortured me really bad, you'd get me to say that there's another sex or gender. But I wouldn't mean it. I don't think there's anything more absurd about the modern age that we live in than the answer given by now a Supreme Court justice when she was asked, "Can you define a woman?" and she said no. I have no idea how she got on the Supreme Court. Are we crazy? We put somebody on the Supreme Court that can't define a woman? Well, that's what you got going on over here. And this government of Salvini, Maloney at the top, great government. Then, of course, Cirilli was also formerly a policeman. And he gave me a very, very good sort of analysis of Italy now. Now, Italy I know quite a bit about, but a long time ago, because I prosecuted, helped prosecute, assisted in prosecutions of hundreds and hundreds of Sicilian mafia members with my friend Judge Falcone, who was assassinated by them, and Judge Borsellino, who was assassinated by them. But they contributed a great deal of evidence to our cases, particularly the Pizza Connection case that was headed up by Louis Freeh. And we contributed a great deal of evidence to their what's called maxi trial, where they tried 800 mafia people in one trial and wiped the shit out of them. You want any evidence of that? Last week, I think it was in Sicily, they picked up a recording in jail where a mafia head of one of the dons of a mafia family in one of the towns in Sicily was complaining about the degradation in recruits. That they get really bad. They have very few recruits. Sounded like what Biden did to the army. They got very few recruits, and the gene pool has really, really gone to shit. They're stupid. They're dumb. The mafia is now way behind most, even middle-level organized crime groups. These people are so much better than us now. I took a lot of pride in that, and I think my good friend, Judge Falcone, who lost his life doing this, killed his wife too. Must be looking down on heaven and saying, "Boy, it worked, didn't it?" He knew, and he knew by the time he died, because most of his work was done in the '80s, and they killed him in the '90s. They killed him actually when I was running for mayor in '93. I think the spring. I remember when I found out. I was walking out of my apartment to go campaigning, and someone said, "Your friend Judge Falcone was just assassinated coming out of the Palermo airport. His car was bombed with his wife in it." I said, "Can't be." So I had seen him the last time here in Rome. And he was. I said, and his office now was then in Rome. It had moved from Sicily to Rome because he'd gone up much higher in the law enforcement circles. And he said, "I'm going to Sicily." I said, "You're crazy. They won't let me go to Sicily, and you're going to Sicily." He said, "Well, I'm Sicilian. I'm a Sicilian patriot, and I'm not going to let them take that away from me." I said, "Well, be careful." And then, the next thing I heard about him, he was killed. Similar with Judge Borsellino, but I didn't know Judge Borsellino as well. Now, he worked with us, but he worked with several other people, and I was not as connected to those cases, but he was equally a great judge. So we had a chance to talk about them. And then I met with Matteo, who I've known for a long time, Salvini, who is one of the young, back then, young people who helped develop a right wing in Italy. Berlusconi, took that and fast forwarded it because of the money he was able to put it and the prestige that he had. But it was people like Matteo who developed the ground game, both in the north and the south of Italy. And then Georgia Maloney similarly came along a little later, but a slightly different party, some differences, and developed an even stronger party. And there were several elections, like the one in Germany that I'll explain to you, where if you had put them together, the frustration was, gosh, if you just put them together. And then they got together. And they won a great victory 2.5 years ago. She is now, at 2.5 years, the 11th longest serving prime minister of Italy. The average time for a prime minister is less than a year, which she would tell you and told me is one of the things she wants to cure. The Italian governments need stability. And at 2.5 years, she's already way beyond the average. And she's had a very stable government. And she's done a really wonderful thing for all of the conservative groups here in Europe that are attacked mercilessly by the press. And it's always the same thing: neo-Nazi, 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 neo-Nazi. I don't even know what a Nazi is, but that's like racist, 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 racist. And you want to know how solid the neo-Nazi charge is, or the Hitler charge is. In 1994 and 1995, which is some time ago, I was described as Hitler. And then because of my ethnic background, I was described as Mussolini. So I have great empathy for this. I think these tactics are beginning to become apparent, both here and both Georgia and Matteo told me here in Italy, it's beginning to get through that these charges are attempts by the left to use propaganda and brainwashing so they can maintain power. And because she's doing such a good job. Also, we're very lucky because we have a very, very strong ally. When I say we, I mean our American government has a very strong and solid ally here in Europe. Now, we don't have that in Germany. Mr. Merz, who was just elected in Germany, used the night that he won to attack Donald Trump. That's really smart, Merz. Plus, his party is a mixture of what we would call in America rhino Republicans, moderate Republicans, some of whom really should be Democrats. In this case, some of whom should be socialists. And then probably half the party, the other half of the party, is probably solidly conservative. So they got 28% of the vote. Not a mandate, certainly, 28% of the vote, but that was the largest plurality. However, the AfD party, which is a new party that had only 9% of the vote 4 years ago, got 20% of the vote. The very, very left-wing Red Party got only 16% of the vote, cut in half. And then the Green Party had a couple votes. So now, how would you think logically you'd put a government together? Well, you would think that Frederick Merz, who is the leader of the more moderate, let's say, conservative party, if you want to adopt their labels, would turn to a somewhat more right wing, but party very similar to his on the major issues, all the same, except maybe the party that's further right really means it, and the Merz party probably has been, two-timing the voters for a long time. It's Angela Merkel's party, and she ruined this country. No. He's not going to talk to them. They have some neo-Nazis. Who? Not the leader of the party. They got some neo-Nazis. Well, you probably have some communists. He's going to turn to the left-wing, really communist group and govern with them, which means his government will be ruined. He won't be able to really restrain immigration because they won't let him do it. He won't really be able to lower taxes because they won't let him do it. So what has he done? He's completely defied the will of the electorate. That's a democracy? This is the point that Vice President Vance was trying to make and did make so eloquently in Munich. And I have to tell you, his speech has resounded in Europe. It's been a rallying cry for the growing right-wing movements all throughout Europe. Some of them may not be ready yet to take over, like in Germany, but double the vote. Some of them are emerging in France, Spain. The situation in the United Kingdom is very strange because the Tories are more or less split. And if they all came together, and it would require a lot of melding of views to have that happen. If they all came together, you'd have a very, very strong chance of taking that government back from a guy who seems to be an extremely woolly-headed left-wing, Marxist. Now, let's give credit to President Trump. These guys like Sturmer in England, who's a very left-wing guy, or Macron, who can be very left-wing, very right-wing, middle of the road, or depending on what his wife tells him. Macron and Sturmer, instead of reacting the way the New York Times and, oh, it's terrible what Trump is doing in Europe, he's treating them so poorly, and oh my goodness, he's not nice. He should be much nicer to Europe. Well, he's telling them the truth, like, pay your bills, damn it. We can't be defending you forever. You want to be defended, learn how to defend yourself. And then you can be really a good ally, like Israel is, or a good ally like Japan is, or a good ally like Italy has become, instead of a basket case. Now, Macron, who hardly seems like he's going to be a guy who's such a rallying cry for an army, is increasing his army significantly, and he's volunteering them to be in Ukraine. So is the socialists in England. Now, they didn't come to that conclusion on their own. They didn't sit up one night and say, oh, I think I'm going to become pro-military. There's a guy who pushed them there for their good and our good, and that's Donald Trump. And as he's explained, and both Matteo and Georgia know this, but I just reiterated it. Underlying all of that is, with the challenge of China, we need strong allies. We don't need sycophants. That just drags us down. To have an ally by saying you have an ally hurts you because you got to support them. We don't have the room for that anymore. And there are plenty of candidates to being strong allies. And we don't have to, take care of basket cases. And in a much nicer way, that's what Vice President Vance told him, saying you got to be able to defend yourself if you want to be a strong ally, or if we really want to stand up to China together. And no longer are we just going to support you, particularly if you don't subscribe to the basic values of Western civilization, like free speech, like freedom of religion. You keep arresting people that are protesting abortion. You keep arresting people for having the wrong thoughts. How stupid is it for us to waste time with it when there are plenty of other countries that are willing to work with us? I mean, as I said to them today, if over the next 4 years we can develop even 3 or 4, I don't know which ones. I know Italy will be one of them. I know Hungary will be one of them. I know Poland will be another one. And I can see this that if we could get over a lot of the, number one, the things that happened 21 years ago, which are not happening now. And number two, maybe take a better look at that to see how much of that was affected by the bias against Christians, and the unwillingness to really focus on and be honest about Muslim extremist terrorism and the damage it does and how pervasive it is. There's been like a fear is you can't tell the truth. You know, people draw paintings of Muhammad, of certain scenes in his life, like killing Jewish people, and that will be ripped down from the art gallery. Somebody puts up a statue of Jesus and has him nude and puts dung all over him. That's perfectly okay. It's free speech. Have a right to do that. So this has to be looked at in a much more like in America, it has to be looked like without two tiers, right? One for the groups that the elites feel they have to placate, or Marxism tells them to placate, and then the rest of us who get prosecuted for things that what we're thinking, or if we're politically advocating for independence for our country, which is what the president of Srpska was doing. I mean, the mere fact that they subdivided it doesn't mean he can't politically fight for independence for his country. They divided it up that way. I mean, it was a bunch of pointy-headed, stupid Clinton idiots who did it. And generally, when pointy-headed, stupid idiots draw lines for countries they're nothing about, they leave behind years of war. Here we haven't had war. We just have major difficulties like this. If this were an independent country, this wouldn't happen. These aren't crimes. These are attempts for freedom. When did we become an enemy of that? Our State Department is, if you're not on what they regard as the right side of the issue. These are all things that, as I said to the people here, we now have an opportunity to cure. So we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back.
Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep grain, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because they like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans, no Robusto, all Arabica. They're going to go into the roaster, and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee.
Internet.
Now, welcome back to America's Mayor Live from Rome, Italy. So today, I also took a wonderful tour of the Vatican and got to see, oh my goodness, maybe the greatest work of art in the world for me, and that is the Pietà. In fact, when I first walked into the Church of St. Peter, and I was going through the Jubilee doors, where based on ancient tradition, if you go through it, when a Jubilee has been announced for the anniversary of the church, and this is a Jubilee year, you are forgiven of your sins. So right now, I'm in good shape. Who knows what could happen tomorrow or the next day? But first thing I did, I got in, and I had forgotten how close to the entrance to Pietà is. And I saw all these people standing around looking. I said, what are they looking at? And then when I stopped, I said, well, they're just looking at the most beautiful thing ever created by a human being ever. I don't know if you've ever taken a good look at it. You can get a pretty good idea of what it looks like in photographs. Um, but it's striking. It's so white. It's so well defined. Now, Michelangelo, of course, is probably better known for the Sistine. Maybe he's not for the Sistine Chapel, but he was a sculptor, and he was a sculptor from the part of Italy that my father's family comes from, Florence, Tuscany, and the Tuscan mountains yield Carrara marble. And as a young man, he used to spend hours and hours out there carving some of the marble to bring back to sculpt. And he felt it was the best marble for a sculpture that he had ever dealt with or in the world, because it was both firm and pliable, whatever that means. I'm not a sculptor, I don't know. But when you look at the Pietà and the other unbelievable works of sculpture that he's the David, right? Which I think, is that in Florence? That's in Florence, right? Yeah. They have one inside the church, and then they have a sort of a replica type outside, because it'll get dirty and all. But I think both were done by Michelangelo. And but of course, the thing that I guess he's most known for is the Sistine Chapel and the paintings on the wall of the Sistine Chapel, which took 19 years. Much of it done on the top with him lying on his back, with the paint going into his eyes. And it was described to me today by the bishop and by a man who's been at the Vatican for about 40 years, that he had an excellent understanding of paint and how the colors would become more vivid and last in the way that he mixed his paint. And you look at it, we were able to look at some, like lower, the close up, the colors are vibrant. Gosh almighty, he did it 500 years ago. This is green, really. Ooh. Wow. So one of the things it reminds you of is we share a civilization. It's called the Western civilization. When I say we share it with the Jews, because Western civilization is based very, very much on the Old Testament of the Bible and the Jewish religion. And just think of the important influence over civilization that the Ten Commandments had. They're the basis of our laws. It's based on the Greeks, the early philosophers, and then the great trio of Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. Pretty hard to come up with. I mean, that's sort of like Earl Combs, Babe Ruth, and Lou Gehrig. Murderer's Row. And we have that in common with the people in Europe, both Eastern and Western. And then we have the great Eastern civilization, when the Roman Empire split into two, and we saw some of that in Serbia. We have to be proud of this. We can't be running it down. And I don't know, if you just step back and take a view of the world that's as critical as possible and as objective as possible, there's no civilization that's contributed as much to the whole idea of humanization and the humanities and the concept that human life is very important. Why does Israel give up 500 prisoners for one life? Now, I think actually that's a miscalculation, but it gives you an idea of how important to our civilization human life is. That is not true of many other civilizations. It's not true of some other religions. Read the Quran. Don't have somebody read it to you. Read it. All of it. Well, we will be presenting more about this, and we'll be covering what happens on Friday when Zelensky probably shows up at the White House. Is he ready to sign? I think so. Is he going to get his security guarantees now? Trump says no. You'll just give me the deal, and then we'll work on that later. And we'll see if he pulls Putin out of a hat. I don't think so. I thought I detected in watching him a kind of playful look in his eyes. Well, maybe I'll have Putin here. But that would be something, huh? Zelensky walks in and there's Putin, who they haven't talked in a little while. And they have to settle it, really. It's their war. It's not our war. It's not Italy's war. It's not Germany's war. They have to settle. And they can. And I really would like to see a ceasefire. And if the president can get them both in one room, I would just be extremely strong on that. What the hell are you doing? Come on. It's over, but the negotiating. So why are you killing people now? You like to kill people? And I say that to both sides. Okay. So we're going to be heading back to the greatest country in the history of the world, from a really beautiful country that I love very much, a place of my ancestors. Gosh, Italy's a beautiful place, and the people are terrific. And the food. Well, let's pray for the people of Israel so that war is over correctly with the elimination of terrorism. Let's pray for the people of Ukraine so that and people in that region, so that peace can be achieved. It's within grasp now. Let's pray for the people of Iran. Let's see if they can't free themselves with our help, support. And let's pray for the health of our president, who is doing so much. It's remarkable how much he's accomplished in such a short period of time. And it's really hard to cover it. You want to cover all of it. I try to focus on the things that maybe aren't emphasized as much because of the fake news, so that you are able to get that. But every day, I feel like I've left out so many things that have been done. But we'll catch up with all of it. And of course, and I love saying it right here in Rome, because 90% of the city would jump up and down, yelling and screaming in favor. They love our country. God bless America.
It's our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve